and then you can count them in.
What was your community like in the area?
What was the community like around the elementary school, Sparrows Point Elementary? Well, that was the odd thing. The community, it was a lot of company houses, row houses, that were owned by Sparrows Point, Bethlehem Steel. And the people that worked in Bethlehem Steel bought or rented the houses from the company. And the unusual thing was, I started there in September of 1971, and I taught there 2 years. The next year, September of 1972, they started tearing the houses down. So what happened was we started the year with, I think, one of every grade, one first, one second, one third, all the way up to sixth. Sixth grade went to elementary school back then. And as the year went on, you would come in on Monday morning sometimes, and a whole block of houses would have been torn down. So you would then lose those students. And as the year went on, we kept losing more and more students. And by the end of the year, we were down to less than 100 students. And we had combinations of grades, like all the first and second graders would be in one room, and the third and fourth graders would be in one room, and the fifth and sixth grade. We were down to like 3 classrooms, because as the year went on, they were tearing more houses down, more houses down. By the end of the year, they were down to almost nothing. We only had like maybe 50 kids left in the school by the end of the year. So it was a very unusual situation, very unusual neighborhood situation. And then obviously after that school year, the school closed, and all those students were sent elsewhere.
Do you know what made you want to teach?
What made me want to teach? Well, my father was a teacher, and I remember when I was a kid, he was a classroom teacher. He taught 5th and 6th grade, and sometimes he would let me help like mark the spelling papers. I was a good speller, so he would let me mark the spelling papers back then. So I guess I got a kind of an idea that I'd like to be a teacher from being around my dad. And then I went to college, and I decided I didn't want to be a classroom teacher, but I was good in sports. So I became a physical education teacher, and that's what I ended up being, a phys ed teacher. And my first school was Sparrows Point Elementary.
What were the teachers like?
The teachers at Sparrows Point Elementary, we had a very young faculty. I would say almost every teacher that was at that school at that time, and remember, there wasn't many, there was only 6, 7 teachers, and librarians and art teachers, but we were all, I would say, first and second, maybe third year teachers. It was a very young faculty, and as a result, we all got along very well together. We had a lot in common. We were all young, unlike now. But it was a fun faculty to be around.
Do you know what the kids were like?
The kids were very nice. I always enjoyed teaching at Sparrows Point. I can't say they were different than any other kids I ever taught. You know, first graders tend to have the same tendencies, and second graders have the same tendencies. So, and that was this group. I wouldn't say there was anything, that stood out about the kids. So, but they were a nice group. I enjoyed it. I never had any problems.
Were you like, how did you feel when you had to leave, like when there was no kids?
Well, it was sad at the time because you knew the kids were all being moved out. So, but we all knew it was coming, so you prepared yourself. And as it turns out, when I left Sparrows Point, I ended up teaching the following year at Chesapeake Terrace, which is right down the street from Edgemere. And not a lot, I'd say about 20 or 30 of the kids I used to teach were at Chesapeake Terrace. So I had some familiar faces there.
Was Chesapeake better than Sparrows Point Elementary?
Was it better? No, they were both very good schools. I guess the thing I liked about Chesapeake Terrace was the outdoor facilities. They had a lot of room and a lot of fields. The fields behind Sparrows Point were a little smaller, and the other thing that I vividly remember about Sparrows Point is when the steel mills were in full production, they used to blast, I think it was called some kind of sulfur or sulfur dioxide into the air, and it would have a very bad odor to it. And when I went home, my car would be covered in this like orangish brown dust, and every day I'd have to go home and squirt my car off to get this dust off that was blown through the smokestacks at the steel mill. So the only reason I liked Chesapeake Terrace a little bit better, I didn't have to wash my car when I went home. But otherwise, it was like two good schools.
What did you like when you started teaching?
What did I like? Well, the main thing I liked was I had a job back then. The hiring back then, I was lucky to get a job. I think when I graduated from Towson University, which it is now, I forget how many phys ed majors there were, but it was kind of hard getting jobs at the time. So I was very happy to get a job, no matter where it was. It turned out to be Sparrows Point and Chesapeake Terrace, and I was very fortunate. And as it turns out, I taught for 31 years, and I spent the whole time in this area. I ended up at Norwood Elementary, which is in Dundalk.
How was
Norwood, I was there I was at Chesapeake Terrace about 10 years, and then I had a chance to go to Norwood, and I thought it was a little bit better situation as far as being there full time, and I wouldn't have to share at another school. So I went to Norwood and I enjoyed it. I was there for 21 years, and I enjoyed it a lot. Very nice group of kids.
Would you like to go back and would you like to go back to, what school would you like to go back to? Norwood, Chesapeake?
What would I like to go back to? Well, they were all different in their own way. I think the school I liked the best, if I could go back, would be Chesapeake Terrace, just because after Sparrows Point Elementary closed and I went to Chesapeake Terrace, they actually closed Chesapeake Terrace to rebuild it. It was a very old building, and for 2 years, we were housed inside Sparrows Point High School, right across the street from Edgemere here. And I taught, our elementary school had one wing of the high school, and we were up there for 2 years, which was another unusual experience to teach elementary school in a high school. But then finally they reopened Chesapeake Terrace, and everything was brand new. It was a brand new school, and being I was the phys ed teacher, the gym was great. It was a big gym. It had lots of baskets, basketball baskets that were adjustable. You could make them lower or higher. If you had the first graders, you could make them lower, raise them up for the older kids. And it was a very good teaching situation for phys ed because it was a brand new gym and a brand new building and all new equipment. So I really enjoyed my time there.
What did you like, do you remember any kind of lessons you teach in the phys ed?
What kind of lessons? Well, you know what goes on in phys ed. What do? We have fun. We play games. I think some of the things, I used to do, a couple of the things that come to mind, I used to do this lesson called the phys ed shopping mall. And what the kids would do, I don't know where I got this idea, but the kids loved it. And I would have cones marking the outside of the gym. And kids would take turns, and they had paper money. And every time you ran a lap around the gym, you got $1, a paper money dollar. So you would collect $3, $4, $5. Then when you thought inside the cones, on the inside of the gym, I would have different stations. Like you could shoot basketball for $5, or you could ride on a scooter board for $3. So you would run around the gym, take your $5, give it to the person that was in charge of letting you in and out of the mall, the shopping mall, and you could go in and shoot basketball for like 5 minutes. And then you would go out and you would run your laps when you collected money. If you wanted to do jump rope or hula hoop or skateboard or whatever the activities were. So I used to love that lesson. The kids liked it because they could do things that they wanted to do. They could go inside of the mall and do the activity that they really liked. And to get the money to do it, they were running laps, so it was great exercise. So it turned out to be a very successful lesson. And then I had another lesson I used to call Scooter City. And sort of similar, you had to sit on a scooter, that was your car. And we had streets, one-way streets and stop signs, and I would pick some kids to be policemen. And if you didn't stop at a stop sign, they'd give you a ticket. But you could drive your scooter to different stations that were different physical activities, and the kids enjoyed that too. So those were just 2 lessons I remember that were the kids enjoyed. We used to have, I don't know if they still have it. Do you guys still have the whittle equipment?
I think so.
Bars you climb over, and we used to have a set of equipment called the whittle equipment, which they used to really love, and we used to get bicycles in, and we do lessons on bicycle safety, and so we had a pretty well-rounded curriculum.
Can you describe the area around the old Sparrows Point Elementary School?
The area around the old was, like I said, the area immediately around it was the houses, which as the year went on got demolished. And then the mills, the Bethlehem Steel mills were a few blocks away, but you could definitely see them and hear them and smell the odor at times coming from them. But it was as I recall, the area immediately surrounding the school was mostly residential.
Do you have like anything else you would like to share about Sparrows Point Elementary School?
No, I think, like I said, the things that were the most vivid to me were the last year there with the kids leaving as their houses were being torn down. It was an unusual situation. The red dust. When I used to go out and play with the kids, I went out very rarely. I used to stay inside, which, by the way, we're talking about, it used to be Sparrows Point High School. So when they built the Sparrows Point High School over here across the street from Edgemere, they changed that from a high school to an elementary school. So as a result, I had a huge gym. I had a high school gym. It had bleachers in it and everything else. So I remember the fact that I had a really, probably, for an elementary school, I probably had the biggest gym in Baltimore County because it used to be a high school gym. It had locker rooms in it and everything else, and big storage area. So I remember that, and I didn't go out much because, like I told you, this red dust that used to come out of the smokestacks would sometimes go on the ground, and you'd go out with the kids, and when you came in, if you had soccer balls or whatever ball they would kind of get full of this red dust in the kids' shoes. So it was not always the greatest situation to go out. But those are the things I remember the most.
Did any of the kids talk to you about their houses being torn down? Were they sad?
You know, it's been so long ago, you gotta remember, that was 1972. You're talking 45 years ago. So I don't remember any of the kids discussing it. And I guess it's just because they were probably given enough notice. You know, they didn't just one night come in and say, you're gone. They would give you several months' notice that, you know, they would tell you in September, well, your house, your block is going to be demolished in January. So they would give you 4, 5, 6 months to prepare for it. So as a result, I think the kids realized it was something that was going to happen. So I don't remember them dwelling on it.